Hi, I'm George Romero.
I'm Tom Savini, special makeup effects.
I'm Lori Cardell. I played Sarah.
That's you right there.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I'm Cletus Anderson, production designer.
There I am.
Dun,
There you
dun,
are.
dun, dun.
Cletus, fake bricks back there.
Oh, you gave it away.
You're not supposed to know that. They're actually latex rubber.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, watch.
To have a young butt again.
Nice face.
I always loved this little sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's Halloween because all of October is marked off. I
Yeah.
never knew that.
This was really scary.
That
actually.
explains the pumpkins. This is funny because we asked those people behind the wall, don't grab her breasts.
You know what? Though,
Because
my
they
husband,
can't see.
No, my husband. He did. He
You're
was
kidding.
covering.
Oh, you're
he
kidding.
He was protecting my breasts.
Because I show this at my school, and I tell the students that we told all the zombies not to grab your breasts, and they clearly somebody has got a grip on you.
That's
you know?
my husband. I promise. We always laugh about that.
I didn't realize he was there that
Yeah,
day.
he was.
That's cool. That makes it better.
Yeah.
I can now tell them that's her
Yeah,
husband. You know,
right.
when we show it again. Every new seminar that comes in, we show them this bit, and lots of others.
This we were in a hangar, right, with all the interior helicopter things. We just changed the seamless paper out back, sky blue to night. Originally, the script was a much bigger script, and it was budgeted, came in at around $7 million. And the people who were producing the film were willing to put up $7 million, but they said, you have to deliver an R-rated version. And so I know I went down to Florida, where we had a place at the time, and I quickly wrote this sort of more abbreviated version, which was affordable at $3 million, and they let us sort of do what we wanted to do.
Weren't there 2 or 3 versions? You kept cutting back?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there were. I probably have to go back and do some corrections or cover some notes or something, but it wasn't really different in scale. Once I cut it back, it was... Oh, well, I think I cut the large one down once, trying to get the budget, in tow, but couldn't.
Because we had an effects meeting, and there was so much more stuff than we wound
there
up
was,
doing. I called it Raiders of the Lost Ark with zombies. It was so big.
I remember I was so worried because I had to walk through the swamps, and
Yeah.
I kept saying, but there's snakes in there.
Didn't you have to drive boats and stuff, too?
No,
Well, there
I
was a
just
whole
worried about the
village
snakes.
that we had designed that was part of the original script.
Right, an above-ground village.
Yeah, right.
And we decided to put it all underground. This was actually in Fort Myers, Florida, these sequences. But it wasn't quite as trashed as this. Cletus trashed it for us.
Yeah.
Good job. No,
this
really,
is,
that is a great
yeah,
job.
this is a matte painting here.
Oh, that was there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Jim Denford did.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't do that much nasty to it, so...
No, they wouldn't let us remove the buildings.
Well, George, when you lived down there, wasn't there a hassle with alligators coming up and eating people's dogs?
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, that still
children.
goes on today,
Yeah.
Really down
Yeah,
there?
children.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the bank.
And there's
Well,
one
okay.
of them now.
Now, I didn't. Somebody pointed out to me that there's a certain point where you can see that the alligator's mouth is like clamped closed, or there's a wire around him or something.
I don't think there was. I remember
No,
being
no.
tossed.
When he walks away.
This is where I was throwing money around. The alligator almost got me
No, really?
Yeah.
on the bank steps.
There's
I
the
love that.
newspaper.
John
There-
Harrison
Yeah.
hit that with that
That
nice
second unit.
note of music there.
That-
Didn't John directed this, right? And
Yeah, this was second unit.
and Ernie Dickerson shot it, director now.
Right.
That's me. My body, actually, that we did. We call him Dr. Tongue because his tongue is hanging out.
Yeah, there's never quite enough light.
Yeah. I remember this
Right.
day. It was 4:30. Everybody wanted to go to Disney World, so there were no reflectors there around. Easily grabbed reflectors, But that newspaper that blew, that they have that same newspaper in Resident Evil?
Is really?
Yeah.
That actually went very smoothly, that blowing that paper up against that corner. It actually happened.
Was that a real?
Oh, look, see, the alligator has a
Yeah.
thing around his mouth, see?
Ah,
It's tied little red wire or something.
I never knew that. This is the guy that brought the alligator, isn't it?
Ah.
And I know the alligator whipped him into the air 10 feet with his tail. Or 300-pound cat.
Well, we were under the impression that the alligators were trained or something.
Oh, yeah.
They're not. They just go out to the swamp and pick one, bring them in.
A big one.
Jarlath.
I'm not sure you can train those guys.
No, I don't think you can.
All these guys down there that wrestle them, all they do is turn him upside down. You turn an alligator upside down, he sort of goes
You rub his tummy.
woozy.
Pass him out.
So if you're ever attacked by an alligator, just turn him upside down.
Yeah. Don't do a Johnny Weissmuller.
Jarlath and Terry.
Right.
They were great.
Very good
Tim.
actors.
Tim DeLeo.
You know what? It was a great community, too, I thought.
Very much.
Yeah, that's a match
That's
shot.
still part of the match?
Yeah. I have your original drawing for
that
that.
I did for it, yeah.
We shot the live shot, and then Cletus took a frame of that and designed the other
Oh,
areas.
you remember this when the
Tasso
police
growing
came
his
up and thought those
marijuana.
were real marijuana plants?
Yeah.
Was it real?
No.
Oh.
We found a plant that simulated them,
Uh,
but he was about to arrest everybody.
There's Tasso.
This again, so far, all of this except for the opening scene with you, Laurie, is
The
in Florida.
exteriors.
That's Greg Nicotero, K&B Effects in L.A.
Right.
We needed them to go down in this elevator to the underground facility. So, Cletus, maybe you can explain.
Well, we made a false deck here and then cut to the actual one that was outside of Pittsburgh. That was an old
Silo. Missile, right?
missile silo.
Murraysville.
Right.
Too many of them out there.
So you start out in Florida and end up in Pittsburgh.
And we're shit out of luck. They're getting too.
And then we go back. Somewhere in this, we
Yeah.
go back. When the
Near the end.
elevator goes
when you
down,
come-
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's near the end, right? First when he,
Activity excites them. They're
I guess once when Miguel lets them in, and then,
Yeah, and they
in the
bite
end.
him. He gives himself up to the zombies.
Stay inside the building. Stay out of sight.
Thankful you live in the suburbs, Johnson. You ought to see how congested the city's getting to be.
I remember, George, when we talked about this early on, I was talking to you about doing it as people that really the end of the earth. I mean, as far as the makeup and the way we would look and, truly like broken teeth and
Mad Max.
even worse than that, though. I mean,
Oh,
I thought that would be interesting, but you said, Laurie, that's a totally different movie. And so,
And so everybody looks okay.
right. So,
Well, they're doing pretty good. They got all their food supplies. They're living fairly comfortably, except for captain or what. I forget what his rank is.
there's the
The fake
yep.
facade of the elevator. Major Cooper. I think that's what Greg Wright says right here, that Major Cooper died. He died this morning.
And then there were 12.
Burial this
Well, the look of the zombies is different in this film, too. In Dawn of the Dead, they were just all gray, although some of them looked blue, some of them looked... but here we tried to make them look like they had died at different times, different ethnic groups, so the coloring on the zombies, we tried to make it more realistic as far as the look of cadavers.
And more prosthetics.
Oh, a lot more, yeah.
They're all local people from down there, and it was harder. It's funny. Up here with the zombies, sort of, when we used zombies, they all sort of approached it with a kind of respect. Down there, it was a lark,
Yeah.
A lot of people just goofing off.
Well, here, when you're born in Pittsburgh, one of the things you want to be when you grow up is a zombie in one of the George Romero movies. I've heard that often.
Well, we've had a few celebrity
All right, now
zombies.
here
Oh,
we
some
go.
very prestigious
now
people.
this
Yeah.
is Pittsburgh.
This is Murraysville,
This is
yeah.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Seamless cutting.
Isn't it?
The Florida sky to the Pittsburgh sky.
Now, the Florida we did at the end of the 3 months.
Yeah, we went down there. Wasn't it close to
exterior.
Christmas time? Now we're in this limestone mine. That I don't know, Cletus. How'd you find this place?
Oh, it's a well-known facility. Actually, they store a lot of film prints there because the temperature's consistently something like 50 degrees. And it's an underground vault where a lot of storage takes place.
They store yachts and everything.
Well, they store
yeah,
Winnebagos,
boats.
yachts, boats.
Yeah, we used to drive around in this place in golf carts, and there were really there's a 27-acre lake down there that we went to visit. That's
Do you know that it's not there anymore?
Wampa
No,
Mines?
really?
They drained all the lakes. I went there.
Oh, the lake isn't there.
The lake is
The
there.
lake isn't there.
'Cause I know
No, the
they-
whole thing is all changed.
But it was the Medusa cement company originally, and they used mined the lime for their product. And the columns that hold up the roof are natural columns. They just carve out portions and then create these
Leave the columns.
massive forms that hold up the roof portion.
And weren't they? They were growing mushrooms, and
Yeah.
there was a
Mushroom
mushroom
farms,
farm.
yeah.
It's an amazing
There's
place.
some of
I
the
mean,
boats
there
right
is
there,
part
yeah.
of the storage.
That's why our lungs had mushrooms in them.
Well, you know, because when if you blew your nose, it would come out black.
Oh.
We had mine fever down here because we would go in at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was in the
Right.
winter time. The sky would be black at 6 o'clock, so we'd come out like at 7 or 8. We didn't see the sun for 3 months.
There are some of those columns. They just
Right.
carved.
It was
Huge.
beautiful. I mean, the set was beautiful.
Well, it was
Very
unbelievable.
natural.
No, beautifully natural.
But
it was.
when the cement company operated this place, they had their own laboratories underground as well, so that you had all these labs and rooms that were dedicated to their work. This is actually the corral that kept the zombies from attacking the living folk, and
You built that set.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
installed.
I remember the little model of it. I wish I. Do you still have that?
I just gave it away.
It's worth a fortune at Planet Hollywood.
I gave it to a friend of Laurie's who was
Oh,
Yeah.
actually it was still in working order. It was exactly a miniature replica of that.
Wow.
He actually, it cost him $100 to send it home.
yeah, wow.
He got a bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
He really.
This place, it's too bad you can't see the vastness of it. I mean, there was just no way to light it.
It was cold. You can see through our mouths.
Yeah.
The
Right.
Well, 58
It's damp.
degrees, isn't it 58 degrees, which sounds okay, but when you're down there for several hours, you really feel it in your
Yeah.
bones.
Well,
in
there's
your bones.
It was always the same
very
temperature.
penetrating cold.
Yeah.
And it was really scary to see those the zombies coming out from the. I mean, truly, truly scary, because it was so dark and the set was. It wasn't like you were on a stage.
No. Well,
It was, you were really there.
Absolutely. It had a reality that really hit home.
It did. It did.
it was dreadful walking in there every day.
Here we
Right.
go, back to the mines.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it's perfect for the film. So I think, what is it? How long has it been now? 19 years?
Right.
When are we supposed to get sick? 20 years?
John Wayne,
John Wayne, the
Conqueror, yeah. Now, this guy on the left, I heard he died in a car accident.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did. Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, I have one of those. A zombie wrangling pole.
A pole with the collar. I thought the stuff looked so great. I mean, it's a really great job, Hercules. That's exactly what they would do.
What do you mean I'm not strong enough? I've done it dozens of times.
I don't want you up here, lady. Send up the pole. They're getting closer.
He's collapsing for Christ's sake. Look at him.
Let go of the pole.
Listen to me.
Let go of the goddamn pole.
Here they come. Let's go!
I think I had them underground. Well, I always had an underground, even in the expanded script. I always had an underground facility. But there were also facilities above ground. So I think we knew that we were going to need something. And then I don't remember, Cletus, if you found the place before I wrote the new draft or not. But
I think we did know about before you wrote the new draft, because this was a well-known facility, and it wasn't that far from Pittsburgh, about an hour by Turnpike, so it was an ideal place.
Still have to live in the Holiday Inn, though. So we went from that Holiday Inn over to the mine every morning.
Yeah, that was.
I
I
understand.
don't know which one we preferred. Actually, one of them had a bar, though. That was
That's true. You never put a bar in here, Cleta.
no.
It's tough to get liquor deliveries through the military. There's beef treats. And he's a magician, Mark Tierno.
And there's Debbie Gordon.
Yeah.
The makeup was great on. Look at Debbie's
yeah.
makeup.
Uh-oh.
Fabulous, because she's a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know any of these people before because we worked on the makeup effects for 2 months, 3 months actually, 1 month there on premises, and we were spending our days making small, medium, and large appliances and small, medium, and large sets of teeth. So if you walked in, we'd look at your size. Oh well, let's try this. Okay, that works. And then this here's the teeth for you, and they wore them all day. And,
Yeah. We didn't know who was gonna be who.
yeah, well, Pilato we prepared in advance because we had to because he lives in Pittsburgh. And Bub Howard Sherman came in and we cast his face because he would have to have a repeating character makeup as Bub.
Which enabled him to show some feeling, emotions.
Yeah, we couldn't just slap on standard small, medium, and large on those people. And of course, Tim DeLeo, we had to do cast his body. I think that was Tasso.
Getting thrown, I think it was. I don't.
Or Tasso filled in for Tim DeLeo, I think.
And she was so ashamed of his weakness.
I'll get chopped up for dog food. Come on, Ricky. Fucking run!
George, you can help me on this because my father was in Night of the Living Dead, and he played himself Chilly Billy. But I I was in New York for about 12 years, and I did a play called Reckless. Yeah. And George came to see that play. And it was a play created by Craig Lucas, who's has become a very famous playwright. And we created this part of this woman who just was on stage constantly jumping around and, carrying this play. And
I thought it was. I loved the play, and I thought you were sensational in it.
And George,
I know we went out for dinner afterwards or something. Jim and you and Richard and I, Chris.
Right, we went out to dinner, and George, I think you said that you had written part of it from just watching me in the play.
the first draft.
Mm-hmm.
Did he really slap you there?
Yes.
How many times?
About 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be real.
It was.
No, I felt very flattered because it in a way I thought this is like nepotism, because my father was in the original.
No, listen, you're
Just carrying on the torch, that's all.
I was carrying the torch.
Passing the torch.
But it was funny how that worked out. Oh, I was very excited because I came from studying theater, and I had never done a major film. I'd done television, but it meant a lot on all kinds of levels because George was part of the family in the sense of knowing my father. Because I remember going to Night of the Living Dead, and I think I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
And this big limo came to our house, and there was a big opening in Pittsburgh, and, But I was used to my dad being Chilly Billy. I mean, that's who my father's Chilly Billy.
He hosted a chiller theater, a Saturday night thriller.
Right. People from Pittsburgh. If you ask anybody, around the country, if they ever watched chiller theater during the 60s in Pittsburgh, they would know who Chilly Billy is.
They'll also hum the theme music for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact,
Experiment in Terror.
In fact, that's you met my father, and
oh, I used to go up to Channel 11 do monsters for him and bring my friends up in makeup, and then he wanted me to go around when he did drive-in movie appearances, and I was always doing stuff for him.
And so I hated horror films. I was frightened. I had anxiety attacks by them. watching them. But so when Chiller was on, I had my boyfriend Danny Devlin at the time. I remember we were in high school, and we would be making out on the couch, and we'd know when Denny should go home because Dad was coming home after Chiller was over.
After the Saturday night double feature, right?
Right.
Because it was live.
Denny, time to go home. Dad's coming up.
They did it live.
It was live.
It was
yeah.
live. It was live. Yeah, he's.
And
so,
there were a cast of characters that he developed after a while.
after a while, right?
It was great. I mean, I always look forward to it.
So there was a family kind of feeling to it. Although, and then I had independently become a professional actor, and
At Carnegie Mellon.
yeah, we all went to George went to Carnegie Tech, and I went to Carnegie Mellon, and
Carnegie Mellon.
Tom, and Cletus, of course, is wonderful professor for many, many years.
And we had some mutual friends there, didn't you know Molly and
Molly.
Holly Hunter? Did you
Holly
know?
Hunter. I went to school with Holly Hunter. You know, it's funny because
She
the
was younger
teachers,
than me.
the teachers would always tell her, you got to get rid of that accent, or you're never going to work.
Yeah.
Holly Hunter, and Sherry Belafonte at the same time.
But she was she was technical.
Sherry Belafonte was.
Yeah,
She
was
was,
a
yeah.
production major,
She was a production major,
which was really kind of silly.
right? Because she was so beautiful.
But she's done films
She
as
has,
an
right?
actress.
No, that was
Absolutely.
funny.
She hosted some show for a while.
I said, "Wait a minute! No, you're a techie. You're a tech. You're not allowed to do that."
Yeah, how dare you?
John Amplis walking away there with you.
Yeah,
Right,
John Amplis,
that's John
Martin,
Amplis.
Martin.
Joe Plato. See, I wanted to play this part, and you wouldn't let me. You said we couldn't do two things at the same time.
Without orders from me, is that clear?
Yes, sir. Fuck you, sir.
No, I felt very honored to be asked to do this part.
Well,
It really, to play a part like this at that time. I think this was even before Alien and Sigourney Weaver and the whole thing. It was this, to have this strong woman on film. That was really.
I think I was still partly apologizing for the first film.
Where Barbara was
Where
just
Barbara was
mindless
just a-
thing walking around.
Oh,
Jello. All the classic things. She falls down, loses her shoes.
Parietal, temporal, and occipital lobes. On revival.
Dr.
The
Frankenstein.
laboratory.
Frankenstein's lab. These were great, Tom, these effects in the lab.
Thanks.
these were great,
Richard Liberty.
These were,
unbelievable.
this was part of the facility, right?
Oh,
Cletus?
absolutely.
Except
Right, this
not, you
was
brought
a-
in all the
All the
stuff.
Yeah, all the
Here's Bob.
additional elements that kind of turn it into a lab.
Yeah. Howard Sherman. Now acting
Super zombie.
under the name of Sherman Howard.
Now it's Howard Sherman, right?
No, it was Howard Sherman.
Now, this is Mike Tersick, one of the guys on my crew. We decided to let him play this part because he was always going to be with us and we could have some advance time in creating this. He's actually lying in a hole.
Right.
And that's how we cast him, so the build-up wouldn't be that big and it would look more natural.
And I remember he was in that hole for a long time. He
In
was
fact, when we
uncomfortable.
were preparing him, we were almost finished and he had to go to the bathroom. And in those days, the video camera that you had a long cord attached to your VCR. So we followed him into the bathroom to try to get some video of him in that makeup, using a urinal. And I had needed one more foot to get into the bathroom door and didn't have it.
Yeah,
so we never
okay.
got the footage yet.
Richard Liberty, he just passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in the Crazies. Wonderful guy.
Going into the center here and attack the R complex discreetly. I've removed it from the equation in this course. I believe this creature would be benign even if it had its eyesight and its other senses.
Crazies, I think, was the first film that we did, SAG, Actors Union, Regs. And I was intimidated by all
Oh
these
my!
pros coming in. But,
Now,
yeah.
now, see, Cletus, I always wanted to impress you as an artist, okay? And this effect right here, you came up to me that day, do you remember?
Yeah.
You thought that was pretty awesome. And it made my day. I felt so good that you had come up to me and said
No,
that.
it's still awesome.
Yeah, it is.
You don't see that often.
There's a certain Kelka shows.
I don't know about you, but I feel like I was in my own little world in the sense of we all worked so hard at what we were doing.
Well, low-budget films, and it rely very heavily on a collaborative kind of, family atmosphere. I mean, it doesn't pay to be tyrannical.
we would have stayed there 18 hours a day for you.
Right,
You know?
yeah, we did.
People want to do things for you, for the film, and you.
Actually, we did stay there 18 hours.
Yeah, we
I'm sure
did.
we did.
Some of you more, right? Cletus, some those prep days.
The
huh?
prep days were long. But, well, I think we worked right down to the moment when George would say, roll.
So a lot of stuff is wet.
I'm not even sure they'll go up top when we run out of the specimens we already have. I'm not sure they won't just try to shut us down completely.
That guy on the table there, that faceless brain guy, that's Barry Gress. We were always using him to experiment on. Hey, let's try this head hit on you. Or he was in there for 3 hours with his head bent way back. In fact, he was drowning. The blood was coming up into his nose. And
Oh, dear.
yeah,
This is the first time I ever had the opportunity to. I didn't realize you could order human brains in number 10 cans, and they would send them to you from these
Carolina Biological Supply.
labs, and you could choose male or female brain, and it'd come all canned and labeled, and you just open it with a can opener and dump it out. And
Well,
there it is.
I think I'm going to take my own. What is that? The organ donor thing off my.
Yeah, for your license. You might wind up in a horror movie. Your
Forget
brain
about
will be
it.
lying there in a jar.
Right.
But
Oh,
that
yeah?
was a rubber brain we used in that effect, though. We actually made a cast of a plastic model of a brain and stuck it in that piece.
Well, you had to order a bunch more brains for Monkey Shines then, right?
Now we had to do this twice because we're sitting in the dailies and he came up too high and we could see the hole that he was sitting in.
Oh.
So this is the second time we went in and shot it. So he would roll and not get up and you wouldn't see the hole. Now this is a retractable
Oh, man.
soda straw.
See,
The sound was added in later, and
that's really something. Whew. Look
even
at that.
Bubba's
That's a
offended by that.
beautiful. That was a beautiful shot.
Well, he conveys such. He's just the greatest.
Yeah, that was.
Radio? Yeah, what the hell is this, man? Maybe we are.
Remember, this was, I think, Terry's. Wasn't Terry worked for about 3 weeks and never said a word? Do you remember that? It was just walking around and driving in the cart, and he never said a word. I think this was the day, finally, the day when he had something to say.
I think we spent a couple of days in this.
Meeting.
Enough. I'll have to lay off the fucking booze still, because there won't fucking be any of it fucking left.
what did he have in the flask, I wonder?
I think it was just iced tea.
Doing my best in the good fight against dry rot and rust.
Yeah? Well, your best ain't good enough, asshole.
You know, I was on the internet the other day, and I think I saw an old review by Siskel and Ebert, and they were saying how it was all such overacting. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think it is.
What do those guys know?
Yeah. I think we even talked about it. I mean, you have to be a little arch with a movie like this.
That's right. You know. At the same time, it won awards. You know, for that, and it's just so
you
interesting.
did, right? You won a Best Actress.
Well, that's that was why I was talking like that. I was
And the
sort of
Saturn.
setting that up. No, but it's interesting how some people don't get it. and
But
some
you
people
just
get it.
you have to be with it. You know, I mean, you have to understand what it's
Exactly,
about and
Right.
what we were trying to do.
And obviously, they were not fans of the genre.
No.
Richard or somebody sent me a big medallion from something that it won in France.
Right. Cinema du Fantastique.
Is that what it was?
It's a beautiful medallion.
Yeah, it's a big, heavy thing. And the Saturn Award. We won the Saturn Award for this, for the makeup effects.
All in there just jerking each other off.
You don't have to jerk off like the rest of us, Captain.
But when it came out, it didn't do very well. It seems like over time, it's picked up an audience.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot. A lot of people didn't. A lot of the hardcore fans wanted it to be lighter. I think they wanted it to be more like Dawn, a little more comic booky. And even though, despite what we were just talking about trying to make it, a little bit bigger than life and everything, it's not. It's got a darker aura, and it's not just this bawdy. It's almost silly it's not as silly as Dawn was.
Yeah, depends on who you are. I go to a lot of conventions, and this is their favorite one of the trilogy.
A lot of people. I mean, but it's so funny. People are so widely split on that. You know, some people love Night, some people love Dawn, and some people love this.
Since I took over, Steele, shoot that woman.
Bang! You're dead.
Well, the first film, you know, I had this conceit for a long time that they were made in different decades. The first one was the 60s, and it had that kind of angry attitude, you know, that came out of the beginnings of the war and, you know, the racial riots. And, you know, when we finished that film, we'd literally finished it here in Pittsburgh, threw it in the trunk of the car, and drove it to New York to see if anyone would want to show it. And that was the night that Martin Luther King was assassinated, on that very night. And so that I think it has a reflection of those times, of the angry sort of late 60s. Dawn, I don't know, was 10 years after or more. And, you know, it was the Bee Gees, man. and comic books. And, you know, so I was trying to, you know, just reflect a little bit. And, you know, that whole consumer society, everybody getting rich and thinking that that's all you needed to be happy.
And malls were just sort of springing up, too.
Yeah. And then this one was, you know, already we were sort of on the downhill, I think. You know, we were getting a little suspicious of of government, and so it has, you know, it's back to a little bit of paranoia, but it's also, you know, that it is back to that confining, claustrophobic feeling of people trying to get along in their own little environment, despite what's going on upstairs. So, you know, I was trying to, as I say, reflect a little bit of the attitude of the decades. And in here, maybe it should have been darker. Maybe, Laurie, you were closer to being right when you said it should really be more Mad Maxy, or really be. But I don't know. This has become my favorite of the three too. But so much about that is the experience of making it. You know, I mean, I think it's the most successful technically. Certainly, the effects, performances are better than the other two. And aside from all that, it's, you know, the working environment and the people that you're working with really plays an important role in how you eventually reflect on the film and where you rank it, you know, in your own mind. And
it also kind of presents, you know, some elements that are we still question what, you know, the importance and the influence of sciences, the military, and civilian life, and how did those all three survive and come together at one time, and each one vying for a position in a society. Who's going to dominate? Who's going to lead? And what would be the purpose?
Yeah, well, that's at its core. That's what it's about: the struggle between the different groups.
Is that food enough for you?
Where will you go, Captain?
And if he was more successful with Bub, wouldn't it have been a military thing to create soldiers that you could control like that, and maybe even help fight the zombies?
Yeah, well, there was more of that actually expressly in the expanded script. They were actually trying to tame them, and, you know, part of the above ground force.
Yeah, they're all kind of vying for a position.
Yeah.
Who's going to dominate? Who's going to make the rules?
Who's running the show?
Right.
I think Sarah was.
Of course. She was the prettiest.
Oh, thank you. I was the only woman. That's why.
Stuck down there with all these guys.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Talking about Frankenstein.
I'll be able to show you soon
So what was going on behind the scenes over there? You being the only woman, you know, I hate to keep bringing stuff like that up.
Well, my husband actually came down from New York a lot. No, my little daughter, Katie, was 1 year old then. And also Chris and George had a daughter. And so, yeah. And
well, actually, Nancy was pregnant with my daughter at the time.
So we had these little babies in the cave with us. And my daughter learned how to. She took her first steps during this film.
Well, but character-wise, behind the scenes, you were with Tim and...
We had these little cubby holes like in the cave, and we had these cots.
Here we go.
Tim and I were just hysterical. We laughed the whole. It was just like one of those things, like best friends. All you did was laugh and laugh because it was just so. I don't know. Everything was so silly, because it was so serious. And here we were in these little army. I don't know. Do you remember they made those little rooms for us?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were like, we each had our own little dressing room, but it was just a sheet, and then there's another sheet.
You each had your own little dressing cell.
Yeah, it was a dressing cell. And
like emergency rooms without equipment.
So,
just a curtain.
Yeah, Tim and I would sort of joke back and forth.
Well, it is ridiculous. I mean, you realize what you're doing, but then, there you are in this outrageous situation with hard to breathe. And,
It was hard to breathe. I'm not kidding. We all were sick a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember one time I had 104-degree temperature. And we were shooting. I'll show you where it was.
Well, the other factor is that you were really actually isolated because you were in a hole all day long. You got finished, it was dark, and you came out and it was like being in another hole.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was.
And the only thing around there was the Holiday Inn and a small shopping mall with something like a. And I understand that place got torn down by a tornado.
It did. Yeah.
Wow.
It deserved it.
Well, we made up for these days at the hotel. I remember we were all sitting around, all the actors, and doing Danny Thomas spit takes every time we would drink something and somebody said something funny. We were practicing our spit takes and running around with roller skates on, because the only time you were free from this environment was at the hotel. And there was a pool, I think. Wasn't there a pool?
There was a pool, and there was a
little
miniature golf thing. I remember Katie used to crawl around on that.
You better know I mean it too, people.
It was unbelievable. I think we got there at 6 o'clock in the morning, didn't we? It was very, very, very early.
Yeah, I think we would meet in the lobby, my crew anyway, about 6, and get over there and start the assembly line of, some days we need 375 zombies, okay. And I remember Cletus Anderson's wife, Barbara, would make up a lot of zombies for like the middle ground. We actually hired a guy to make background zombie masks for the far away zombies. Then we would do appliance makeups on the foreground zombies. And every time the press came, the guys in the masks would crowd around George. And so they did photos. All the photos of Dawn of the Dead were these guys in these masks.
Funky masks.
And not these wonderful makeups and things we were doing.
Well, especially, there's one photo that appears everywhere, looking down into the silo. And it's nothing but those masks.
Yes. We had 200 background zombie masks.
Actually,
we did work long days. I mean, I think, I know the character of Sarah.
Well, she's always there.
I was always there. And so, but I was so dedicated to the part. I really had never, like I said, I'd never done a major film before. And I've never done a major part in a film before. I mean, I've carried plays before in theater. And, so shooting out of sequence and trying to really make a character that had dimension to it. And, I took it quite seriously, very seriously.
Well, it was appreciated. But, you also brought all that training. I was being blown away by your voice, how you could control it even when you got big,
Oh, thank you, George.
Aren't you? Just as afraid as I am.
Each day is different. Obviously, when we had to have a lot of zombies, that you couldn't, we'd have to wait until Tom's guys were all ready with that. So we'd maybe shoot a couple of little things in the meantime, and those would be shorter days. And then when we had big setups, either in the silo or the Florida scenes, we had to use a second unit in Florida, as Cleta said, because we just we didn't have enough time. So we went off and shot the scenes inside the stuff inside the chopper was shot here in Pittsburgh, but all the exteriors on the island. That's actually on an island off Fort Myers called Sanibel, which is where the platform was that is supposed to be the Nike silo. And, those were big days, and so there had to be a second crew that was shooting all the downtown stuff when the principals weren't there. There's just those montages of the zombies.
Well, those were long days because we did lots of setups.
Yeah.
In one day, trying to,
get everything
outrun
in.
the sun.
Yeah. And it's tough. And some of those days, I mean, the one scene, of course, the biggest crowd of zombies that you see in downtown Fort Myers there is largely from behind. So I don't even remember how you guys did that. Were you working down with them, and we were shooting other?
There was like a big. I'm gonna think it was a tent, but it was like I remember a big room, and we brought all those small, medium, large appliances, and then people just showed up, would slap it on them, and so there was a lot of makeups involved on the ones in Florida too. And bugs, spiders,
alligator.
And we used a lot of empty store fronts to set up displays of various horrors.
Yeah. That theater, there's actually this April there's going to be a film festival in Fort Myers, first film festival.
In that theater?
In that theater.
Wow.
And they're showing this film.
Excellent.
So you guys want a trip down?
Yeah.
I just came back from there.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was there.
I mean, these scenes walking around. Remember the bats? We were trying. This was before CG or before we could afford anything like that.
Oh,
they were those little mechanical birds on strings that were.
There goes
one. There goes one.
Yeah, no, there's a mechanical bird on a string on a wire. In fact, there's one scene when the head rolls on the ground later on. I remember that one of them the string broke and the bat went hit the ground.
Is that?
We got silly, I think, on this one.
How were you flying those? Just on,
Actually, it
on a
wasn't
wire?
me. It was
Bruce Miller did that.
Bruce Miller.
The Ritz. That him?
This trailer.
Yeah. This was fun because it showed. I mean, I enjoyed this part of the character because finally she was breaking. There was an opportunity to show a different part to this person.
Look,
that
flowers,
was just
candles,
trying to hold it together.
That's got to be your influence. Was that a Dawn of the Dead homage there? The rack on the wall and the
No.
earlier her against the
No,
wall
I think
with
it
the
just
blanket?
made sense.
Yeah.
And I left it.
this is
Terry's place.
Yeah.
Fix it up like the Caribbean.
He's back in Jamaica. Mon.
Now, I love this monologue that he does. I
Yeah.
think this is beautifully done by him.
Finally gets to speak.
And he does a great job.
Yeah.
It's a little safer where you are. But we like to live dangerously, Billy Boy and me,
That's a laugh.
Terry was a very dedicated person also, came from the theater, and we were studying a lot. I mean, it's not like when we were off the set, we were laughing and having to do all these other things just to survive in that environment, but he was he really worked hard at his part.
Yeah.
And we discussed it, we rehearsed it, we talked about it together, our scenes, and a lot of times with other actors that I've worked with in television, some people don't want to work with you. Let's take the scene off to the side and work it and see what we can find in this. And Terry was terrific that way because he really did. He took great pride and had a good craft. And I think he's a very good actor.
And just the sweetest, gentlest guy.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy.
And he was very giving. I mean, one thing we did is that we did stay there for the other actor. Sometimes in films, the other actors don't stay, and you're sort of talking to the air.
Yeah, or the AD.
Right. But we stayed for each other and gave to each other.
I thought that was great. And everyone did.
Everybody did that. Even though, so that the actor could actually play off of something, off of a human being and the character that they were playing.
Man, they got the books and the records of the top 500 companies. They got the Defense Department.
Yeah, the over-the-shoulder shots. Like Laurie was there. We're shooting this shot of Terry, but she was actually there playing it with him.
Yeah, I'd stand by the camera or wherever.
Wherever the
and
island.
vice versa. Terry would do that for me or
Yeah.
Charlotte.
Census reports. I make unofficial accounts of all the wars and plane crashes.
Charles was a great guy, too. Interesting guy.
Mm-hmm.
Also theater, Irish theater.
That interrupted the flow of things in the good old U.S. of A.
A lot of these, well, Gary Clark was pro football, wasn't he, before this?
He was.
New Orleans Saint.
Record keeping. We ever gonna give a shit? We even gonna get a chance to see it all? This is a great big 14-mile tombstone with an epitaph on it.
Schedule is never adequate. Well, what happens is, though, the work does fill the time. Of course, everybody gets, just blown out by the third or fourth week. Everyone's exhausted. And we were shooting a 6-day week. And so, that's always tough. You don't have time to, even do your laundry. Sunday, you just want to crash. And a lot of the people in our departments, still have to work that day, either to prep for what's coming up Monday or looking at dailies or working with the editor or, whatever. So it's a 6-day schedule is brutal.
That was brutal.
It's just really, you get fried,
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of your second wind comes about week 5 or 6, and
it becomes fun.
Able to, yeah. I guess that's what it is. You're just so dopey.
Yeah, because you're worried about in the beginning about meeting the deadline and get everything done. Then pretty soon it just is. I can't wait to get there. It's so much fun,
Yeah, and it's. Yeah, and also you realize that we're doing it. We're actually doing it, and you feel like we are going to get this done, whereas those first weeks you're always worried about the wolf at the door.
Yeah, but also by this point you're watching dailies, you're seeing what you're doing. Oh, that works. That's great. It's like anything else. When you're making progress with something, you want to do more of it,
But it really takes dedication. I mean, you couldn't make this film with
a bunch of stars.
No, or with with a pickup crew, or I've been in those situations. Boy, that's you just everyone on the crew knew the script. I've been on sets where people don't even bother to read it. And and the detail. Where I've had set dressers that have no idea what should be this person's character, or just put a pillow in there because I like the pillow. Forget whether the character might like it or not.
Maybe he figure we was getting too big for our britches, trying to figure his shit out.
Well, in these days, I didn't do much boarding. I mean, there were a few things that we needed to have specific angles on either for Tom or if Cletus wanted something shot from a certain angle. But I never did a lot of boarding. I always waited till we got there and then figured out, an efficient or doable way to shoot it. I still don't like to board very much. I find that unless it's a scene that really needs careful choreography or that requires something because of an effect or whatever. I prefer to go in and just get a sense of it. But we were always able to.
Well, I think we all understood the atmosphere that we were going for and what the dramatic intent was, so that you had a foundation that then you allowed inspiration of the moment to kind of add to that if that was necessary. So it seemed to work out fairly well.
But it's also a lot of the people on the Pittsburgh crews in those days had experience in so many different aspects of production that they understood. They understood what would cut to something else, what wouldn't, and you didn't have. You could shorthand a lot of stuff. So.
Exactly.
This was the very first day of shooting. Right here, this shot.
Yeah.
That shot, I was so scared.
You never showed it.
I thought I was going to faint.
They are the same animal.
Yeah, right there. In fact, I said, see under my eyes? That's where I was trying to go for that. And I said, put some dark circles under my eyes. Because, she's really tired. But then that's when we decided, no, we got to go do a little more glam.
Be rewarded. Reward is the key.
He doesn't have a lot of blood on him this time.
Who?
Dr. Frankenstein.
Well, he changed, washed his clothes.
Washed his clothes.
Is that Tierno back there? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's Mark.
Is he still working as a magician?
I don't know. He used to actually work in a magic shop on the south side.
I know. Cuckoo's Nest or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And John Amplis is teaching at Point Park.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of directing. Still very active in theater.
Neat stuff.
Think.
We just built this one piece of ply. I still have the molds for it. In fact, my students duplicate this and make themselves up as Bub sometimes. You know, we had to. There were certain scenes later on coming up where he had to shave and take off sections of it. You know, so it was pretty easy. But we cast it. We did. It was a one piece covering his neck. I think up under his sideburns, along his forehead. We just thought that we wouldn't do anything thick on him like Beef Treats, Mark, and the other zombies. It was a very thin appliance, and it was mostly just kind of a wrinkled look, kind of like what Scott Reiniger had when he turned into a zombie in Dawn of the Dead, you know. But we didn't want to take the time to do that every day, so. But it only took an hour, and that's why, because it was one piece.
Well, he has so much expression, though.
Yeah, and false teeth, of course. We actually cast his teeth to make. They were a little different than the other ones. They didn't stick out so much. We gave him a missing tooth. He doesn't have any eyebrows, I'm noticing. I guess. Oh,
hey, Steve.
George, I remember you loved this part. You really loved this part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was
terrific.
It's really the evolution of the of the zombie. Wait till the next one.
Here's where he shaves the piece on.
I think you should keep the same actors, you know.
Okay. Well, no. See, then you get into right straight. You can be in it, but you have to play somebody else, or else it's just.
I'll play Bub.
Yeah. Copyright laws or whatever. Ownership. Howard was just, magic, you know.
Yes.
He really brought it.
Beautiful.
Brought it to death.
Yeah, he's the silent movie actor in this. He's communicating with.
Now that hand was that a glove or was that?
No, that's where we did do.
Make a close up.
He would stretch, make a fist, and would put latex all over it, and then powder it, and then he would.
And then the wrinkles
they would just appear.
I mean, when he does that, it just looks like a chimpanzee hand or something. It's just...
I think we colored his nails too, made his nails darker, like there would be no blood flow, like edema all settled in those areas of the body.
I saw one of those things sitting in a car in D.C. trying to drive down Independence Avenue. It didn't make me want to be its friend.
What's amazing is not what this one does, but what he doesn't do.
What do you mean?
He doesn't get excited and doesn't get agitated when Logan walks in the room.
Well, this is one of the first times where I had a nice sized crew. I think I had 6 or 8 people, and 3 of them went off to LA and formed their own effects companies, Optic Nerve, K&B. And again, we spent the first 2 months at my house in my basement with a huge oven, and we bought an oven just for this movie. And we would every morning run foam latex, make the appliances, small, medium, and large. We would actually walk on the molds because you have to put pressure on the molds. So there was enough guys to do that. I mean, we had 6 guys at my basement, preparing this stuff. But and they were all they were great. They were all, like George said, they all knew a lot more stuff than just makeup. They were mold makers and sculptors and sketch artists and painters and of course, we had an effects list that we had to go from, and going like what was going to be needed first, and the schedule would concentrate on that. Like when they sent Joe Pilato to us, George, as well as with the actors, he treated us the same, and he would let us come up with stuff, let us improvise. Like when Joe Pilato showed up, and we thought, how are we going to kill him? Well, let's tear him in half. Because he's like the roadrunner and the coyote. If you catch him, you want a lot to happen to him. So because he's so bad, so let's tear him in half. So That's what we do. He came to my house. He laid on my floor. We cast his body, And then Tasso, my friend, he was a stunt coordinator on this film as well as playing that part. We said, well, Tasso's our friend. Let's tear his head off, And we realized after we could take a guy like the brainless guy, the faceless guy with just the brain, Barry Grass, in the opening shots there, we thought if we could get away with that, if we can make his head disappear, then we can cast Tasso's head and make a whole head and attach that to his body, and it would look just as real. And of course, then Tasso had to have his head way back for that effect. So that's what we did. We would invent and go to George and say, how about if we tear his head off? And George would go,
can you do it?
Okay. So then we would just start doing it,
That's true about you, George. You gave a lot of freedom to the actors also. You let us explore.
Well, it's, when everybody's as dedicated, it's, you can do that, So
well, that's what creates the fun. I'm sure it was fun for you to have the freedom to do what you wanted to do. And for us, the fun was coming up with ideas, not just what was in the script.
Right.
And having George say, yeah, let's go for that. I remember George called me from Florida once. We were talking about the shovel gag,
Oh,
And I talked to him on the phone. He wrote the shovel gag in because we came up with a way, a unique. Because, George, would send me a telegram, think of ways to kill people, So then that was the fun. The fun was inventing how to do this stuff that we would come up with,
Well, the character of that Joe Pilato played, you really wanted him to be torn in half.
That was our feeling at the time
cheered.
too,
But everyone has to be there and know what it's about and know what you're trying to do. And and so when you have an environment like that, there's a lot of trust running in all directions.
Yeah, I miss these. I'd like to see these people again.
Yeah, have a reunion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John, we see once in a while over at the Playhouse. But
is he back in Pittsburgh?
Amplis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's teaching at the Playhouse, directing.
That's right.
This the shit that's supposed to knock our socks off?
I did 2 more films with Joe out in L.A., Demolition Man and something else.
Did you?
Yeah, he does murder mystery
theater
and on cruise ships.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fun.
And now he started to do conventions as well in L.A. The horror conventions.
Horror conventions.
Yeah. Like the Fango Weekend of Horrors or something. We did a convention with him in Florida, a Fango Weekend of Horrors in Orlando, just before he died, actually.
Well, that's when you get to see everybody, It was like when in L.A. that time we saw Ken Furry and Scotty.
He was. I thought he was excellent in that scene.
Who, Richard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's another guy on my crew, Priest Zombie.
There's Barbara Russell.
Barbara Russell.
She's a comedian, local comedian.
And Chef Brockett is here somewhere, isn't he?
Yep. We'll kill him later.
You got it.
Fred Rogers never did a zombie.
Damn.
Oh.
I asked
Mr. Rogers zombie. That would have been wild.
Well, we got Chef Brockett.
We could have found a lookalike and put a nice little sweater on him,
But I don't.
I think she's about to hurt somebody bad. Everybody gets hurt in this scene, I think.
Yeah, this is nasty.
He gets it right here. Terry. Is his name Terry? No, Phil.
Phil.
Yes.
Oh,
Phil
I thought
Keller.
that was so gross.
Yes. Terry, now Greg got shot here. You kill her.
Bad day in Black Rock.
Remember, we also had a gun master on the set who taught us how to shoot.
Yeah, and
they really had a kick, the machine guns.
Oh yeah, he let us fire it. Here,
Dangerous.
Tim gets bitten here.
I mean, this was no joke because I think prior to those, was it when John Hexum, the actor, actually was killed
with a blank gun?
With the blank gun. So there was this George hired a gun master to teach us how to use the weapons and
not horse around with them.
And as I said, when the Uzis, when we were using them, we did a trial run, and there was so much of a kick to it. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was like throwing me back, But then when you see the movie, they actually didn't you put you had to put little sparks in there, the animation.
Yeah, a gun flash is so you never know whether you're going to get it. The camera shoots 24 frames a second, and you very often you miss the gun flash.
This is kind of famous here.
That was Tim's
scene.
real arm. No, that's his real arm with a hole cut out of the machete.
Yeah, that was pretty.
He's got the crew actually dug a hole for me because when he was lying on the ground with his arm behind him, it would have elevated him, so his real arm, is in a hole behind him. And there's a series of effects going on here. The real arm gets hit by a rubber arm gets hit by the machete, then the real hand with a fake machete is on, so we can get some twitching in the fingers. And now it's a fake arm attached to him that we pump blood out. And we actually built a cauterized arm for after she burns it here. But we're actually taking the torch to a real rubber arm at first, I think.
What really makes this interesting is I thought that this took this film to a level of just over the edge.
Oh, you never see stuff like this.
No, right. This right here is over the edge. Right there.
There's the car
there it is, right there. I said, okay, this is definitely a film that I would be afraid to see.
Like, I took this arm on the Letterman show, and I said, they cauterize. He said, well, who cauterizes the arm? Well, the characters in the movie, because we had all the pieces on the show.
That took us a while to figure out, though, about the arm. Remember?
I remember the first arm, the machete would hit it, and the machete would bounce right off.
It bounced,
of it, right?
yeah.
Oh, Christ, after digging the hole. And so
we
had to go and take a section out of the arm and put mortician's wax in it and paint that like the rest of the arm so the machete had something to bury into. It still bounced a little bit, but I think that would have happened.
It works. Nobody ever sees that, except you.
The yellow son of a bitch. It's his fault this happened. It's his yellow fucking fault.
No, the guns, very well, often they would jam or not fire. But, and then there is this thing about, you only get, you're lucky if you get a few of you can shoot 10 rounds and you're lucky if you get 3 flashes. So a lot of the flashes out of the M16s and the Uzis had to be animated.
Is it true because of the way the camera plane works that if you see the flash in the camera, you're not seeing it on the film?
Yeah, if the camera operator sees the flash, then it's not being photographed. Except the camera shoots 24 pictures a second, and in between those, it gives the camera operator a view. So, it's like a prism rotating.
Sleep with him.
If you don't see the gun flash, that means it is on film.
Because the film saw it, and not the cameraman.
Right.
We gotta blast him, Captain.
He's gonna die.
But we had a lot of trouble with the guns jamming. He was manufacturing his own blanks too, wasn't he?
The gun.
Remember.
But I know even a lot of the times the DP Mike Gornick, who was also operating, would have to put like a tarp over his legs because you could, if you're close to those things, you really feel the little bits of wax.
Well, he did get shot in the leg on the rooftop of Dawn. Remember, a blank hit him in the leg. A paper wad coming out of the blank.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned John Eric Hexum. That's what he did. He just joking around, held the blank gun right to his head.
Right.
And shot that wad into his head and died.
Well, isn't the same thing happened to Lee?
Brandon Lee? No, that was a fluke. They got rid of the gun handler. See, when the gun handler is on the set, it's very safe. He walks up to you, shows you that the gun is empty, shows people around you the gun is empty, hands it to you. And if he walks away, if you see somebody talking to you, he'll come right back and make sure before the scene that it is still empty and you didn't do anything. So they got rid of the gun handlers on The Crow, and they turned it over to the prop people. Well, what they did was, so you would see rounds in the chamber from the front. They built dummy bullets. They open the bullet up, take all the powder out, put the dummy round back together. That goes back in the gun. The story is, and Tony Todd was on that movie, by the way, The Crow, when Brandon Lee was killed. They took the dummy rounds out of the gun, but one of the slugs from the dummy round stayed in, and they put the blanks in the gun, and of course they created this super powerful 44 round, and it split his spine in half when they shot.
Oh gosh.
Brandon Lee.
It's all right.
Nice going there, Lori.
Thanks, George. Your direction.
Yeah.
You gave me a lot of time. I remember there was preparation in this scene, emotional preparation. It's not like when you're doing theater, sort of rolls,
Well, it's in real time.
Yeah, you stop but George gave us the time to prepare. I remember that scene in particular because that was a very emotional scene.
Smalis Winnacle. Try it on.
Thanks. I have to go to the lab.
With me, it's mostly about just understanding, who the character is and then it's what, the most important thing is that the actor is comfortable doing, being able to get there, somehow, whatever it takes. And it's, every actor, I guess, brings to some extent some of their own personality to it, but I don't look for, do this specifically and turn your head right this way or any, stuff that, Hitchcock is noted for doing. I'd much rather shoot what the actor's doing than insist for the sake of camera on any, specific movement or line delivery or whatever. It's just, again, it's relying on them to be there and understand what they're doing.
They'll leave us alone.
Half an hour.
We'll be back.
Casting type, well, I mean, there's always, you always have something in mind in terms of age and, the obvious things, whether it's race or some sort of physical thing that you have in mind. But no, I generally have always used open casting sessions, except of course when you're dealing with a casting agent and you're working at a studio where they want a certain star or whatever, and then sometimes you don't, you're not even part of that decision, and you just hope for the best. But I like just open casting sessions. But I also love working with friends. I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, I would change something or write something specifically because I like somebody, rather than, the search for the perfect whatever. But it's a very collaborative medium, and I think the actors wind up, and people don't realize how much the actors sort of touch each other, in an emotional way, and how important, not only the relationship of the characters is, but the personal relationship.
5 minutes, Mother. Just 5 minutes.
Greg
Nicotero. We thought about sticking his head through a table and putting an appliance on his real head to make it look like a severed head, but I wanted to be able to see under the table that there was nobody there, and
yeah,
and because you can. I don't care how good you are a fake head. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger's head in the Terminator, you look at him longer than 3 seconds, they're fake. We're lucky here that he's dead, so you have to look at the real guy's face, but that's how we decided to do this illusion.
That helicopter before somebody else does.
That head in Two Evil Eyes, the head of Bingo O'Malley's head, I thought that was unbelievable.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. We got better as
time went on.
Compared to some of the early stuff in Creepshow, like Carrie Nye's head. We knew we were going to really use Carrie Nye, so we didn't need a really realistic fake head. But E.G. Marshall, by the time we did E.G. Marshall, it was better. Greg took that head home for Thanksgiving and stuck it in his bed and hid behind the bed with all the mechanisms and called his mother in the room. She walks in and his severed head is lying in the... She didn't talk to him the rest of the day. It was Thanksgiving, Because, the outlet for practical jokes is vast when you do this sort of thing.
Well, doesn't he come from a line of physicians?
Yeah, his father is retired now, but he was a...
Neurosurgeon?
Kidney specialist. Yeah, it would have been funnier if he was. Dr. Nicotero.
I always blame myself for Greg getting into the biz, because we ran
Yeah.
into him in Italy. Actually, we were over there visiting Dario, and we ran into his whole family at a restaurant.
No, his dad's cool with it. Greg was in medical school. He could follow his father's footsteps, and he now has a very successful effects company, and was our influence.
Well, when he told his family he was going to drop out, I left town for a week.
He was such a nice guy, though. He was so young then.
Yeah, really nice guy.
Just had a
Very
baby.
nice.
Just had a baby a couple of
Did
months
he?
ago. Devin,
Yeah.
first son.
Oh, good.
Red button.
He's listening to Black Sabbath here.
I forget what we used. I should talk. I mean, I have to mention John Harrison, man. I mean, this is an operatic score that he did. I mean, it's almost wall to wall, and it's so great. I love the whole opening sequence until you guys get to the elevator. It's just this one terrific piece of music, and he hits all the beats. Like when the newspaper blows up, he gets a little wow.
He is super talented.
Another example of someone who's multi-talented and does it all.
Well, directs and he wrote and directed the Dune on the new version of Dune for Sci-Fi Channel.
Very talented musician.
Yeah,
yeah,
and a nice man.
Yep. Pittsburgh guy, no?
Yeah, East Coast guy.
Is that?
Well, almost all the crew people that we used to work with on this film and several of the most of the other ones are all out in L.A. now.
I can't look.
Hardly anybody left in town except us kids.
Yes.
And I came back to Pittsburgh after this.
Yeah.
Good night, Bob.
Well, when did you did a Broadway play? I remember seeing you. Was it with Glenda Jackson or
right?
Wasn't that after this?
It was after this. Yeah. I 4 years after Day of the Dead is when I came back to Pittsburgh because we started having children, and it was hard. It was a hard decision to make whether to have a full-time career and have somebody else raise my children, or to be a mother to my children. So, see, you can see that on
the animation.
That's Tasso getting shot, and then there's...
But I did a play with Glenda Jackson and Jessica Tandy called Rose. It was on Broadway, and a great privilege to work with them.
She's a politician these days, isn't she?
Yes, she is. She talked about doing that. I think that was one of her last jobs.
Those are my men in there!
Excitable kind of guy, Joe.
Yeah. I don't know.
He's got that little Superman curl. I don't know how.
You know what I find always interesting also is that people don't realize how tall actors are, or how not tall, or short they are.
Yeah.
That's always interesting.
Because they're 40 feet high on the screen.
Yeah.
Get that impression.
Right. Now I'm really tall. I'm 5 foot. 5'9", 10. So, and that's unusual. I mean, a lot of the actresses are in film are not
smaller.
tall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tim and Joe were shorter than you, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you meet people at conventions, they go, "Oh, you look. I thought you were taller."
Mm-hmm.
Hold it right there.
Well, I guess the biggest challenge was bringing everything into this hole in the ground and trying to utilize some of the things that had been abandoned there, setting up all the labs and bringing in things that were debris, and then building the corral from scratch and finding a place at the in the cave that seemed to be a logical place to create a barrier. And there are a lot of things that we brought into the space.
All this stuff.
Yes, and it had to look as if it had been there forever, and which took some time to create. The once you were in the cave there, you had very little resources. I mean, you couldn't, it was always, if you forgot something, it was a trek to go back into town to acquire things. So we had to set up our own little shops and supply units within the space.
Yeah, there wasn't even a hardware store around.
No Home Depot back then.
Nothing. Steel, shove them in there.
The offices had been abandoned for a long time, so our problem there was to clean them up and make them look like pristine labs once again. And so every project has some interesting challenges, and I think that's what creates the excitement about the work, that you have goals that you're trying to attain, and you focus on doing the best possible thing you can. And this certainly had its challenges. Being in the hole was
the biggest one of them for different reasons for everybody. At least it had plumbing.
Yes, not in this area.
No,
no porta potties.
And then,
but the craft services was out there somewhere. I know.
Yeah, we ate well.
You have to dust off your apples.
Let him out. That's the deal.
I make the deals around here, not you. Now you get your shit together, whatever you need.
Isn't there an old silo back there?
No, we can't go back there without guns.
We can't stay here. They'll tear us apart.
Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
Don't shoot him!
We need his ass.
It's amazing the amount of work, and people just have no appreciation of it. People that go to watch movies, generally. I mean, we've worked on productions, hundreds of people, a couple, I forget, well, the biggest one, I don't know, Dark Half, I guess, was the biggest overall crew. And, you're in charge of an army, basically.
That's it. Run, you fucking lunatics.
And different specialties, and very often there are egos, and
what lines to cross and not to cross.
Yeah.
Something of this nature was certainly very, very collaborative, and you were very close to the work all the time.
Yeah.
So you were aware of what was going on and what was needed, and I think that makes a big difference.
It does, yeah. Well, Night Riders, I always felt too. Chris says, "Oh gosh, you guys killed yourselves on Night Riders," which we did. But I always felt like we were really that troupe, and that we were. Huh?
We even looked like that troupe.
Absolutely were.
Jesus Christ, that's the elevator.
Check it out.
You can't recreate that environment. You certainly, as I say, you can't. You'll never get there with like a pickup crew and people that.
Well, for Night Riders, we were actually practically living on the set in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And this was really neat, that elevator.
Yeah. I was in a real Nike silo. I remember going down there and finding graffiti that the soldiers had written.
Exactly.
When they were thinking that they were going to be firing them at somebody. This has always been a slightly disappointing sequence, because I always imagined that we would have, 6 or 7 days to shoot. I don't mean anything about performance or the way it looks, but I wanted to make it a real spook ride. Remember, we always used to talk about this reign of terror.
Yes, the haunted house.
The haunted house, and we just had no time to make the shots.
Wow, that place would make a great haunted house, though.
Yeah, you mean at Halloween time?
Yeah.
Really do one in there.
Open it up in October. Oh, foam rubber 2 before.
Well, the way it plays out, you get the startles, and that was the shovel gag.
Yeah, there's.
Oh.
Yes, now that's a cutaway shovel, so I could use the real actor's head. And then here they gave me scores for throwing this, like 9.2, because it had to hit up a specific mark, with the head, and it had to be upright. That's Tasso playing a zombie.
How many times does Tasso die in this movie?
God, just like Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, there's this remote control eyes in the mechanical head of.
Was that a bat that just went by?
That was the bird that fell, and that's where it fell when we were shooting the headshot there. I don't think you saw it here. Clunk. Uh-oh, he's stripped of his gun.
It is amazing the amount of work, and as you watch it, it just all comes back. Moments come back and things like Glory. You didn't tell us where you had that 104.
Yeah, I was taught that at Carnegie Mellon University.
You mean you were working with a fever?
Yeah, I was really sick. Where in the when we were behind in the trailer, that scene when I was sitting there. Oh. There was something going around the set. That was like the very last day of shooting, one of the very last days, in the cave.
Right, we came back to do all the trailer stuff, and I don't know if we shot. I don't know if there was any more action left to do at that point. I don't remember.
Well, look what we did. We were in Florida, and then came back to the snow of Pittsburgh. I wonder if that had something to do with it.
Maybe.
Yeah. We had a holiday break there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a big party at your place in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful.
What?
Look at that bat.
After the wrap?
There's the lake. Look, you can see the lake.
A little glimmer of that wasn't the big lake, was it? We couldn't get all the way back there.
No, that was way. Yeah, it was pitch
Did you
black.
build that, or was that a puddle? Or?
No, that was a natural phenomenon.
Actually, George, I think this sequence. You said you would like to have made it longer, but it's pretty spooky.
Not this sequence. The earlier one. It winds up being all action and no anticipation. But none of that.
No suspense scare.
Suspense. Walking around.
That job's done.
Time for a drink.
Just ran out of gas.
Lighting this place was really grief, and the light levels were so low. I know we came up with a lot of soft shots, but so that also ate up a lot of time because we'd have to reshoot something for. I don't know if you got caught by that. I don't remember.
There's Chef Brockett.
Oh yeah, Chef Brockett.
I remember the first take of this head hit. The blood came out of the back of his head first, and then the hole appeared in the front. We had to do this over again.
Oh.
Or the other way around, I guess.
Gosh.
Chef Brockett came out to do that.
Now we're in Florida.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is his big scene about to happen.
Yeah. Right. We got onto all these raps about the religious significance of all of this.
Oh, his medals and things.
Yeah.
He's got his real arm tucked behind his back, depending on which way you shot him. If we shot him from the back, his arm was in the front. If we shot him from the front, his arm was in the back. Like right there.
Hold it on. Fuck.
Fix it. Can't you fix it?
Oh, there's Tasso.
Yeah.
Without makeup. Without a disguise.
So he was doubling as a zombie at one point.
At several points.
Yeah, well, the whole crew was a zombie at some point because we had to be a zombie. I think I was the only one who didn't play a zombie.
Oh. Do you notice every gory thing?
Because there's a clown. You see the clown zombie?
Are we supposed to have lunch after this?
Probably. Lasagna that day, probably.
Oh, man.
But this was we were over near some beach down there, right?
Yeah.
And you had to.
Sanibel.
You guys had to do all your work out on some.
Under palm trees. But don't forget, we loved it though because we came from snow.
Yeah.
Down there and palm trees.
Now, this is Pittsburgh coming down.
Yeah. No, yeah.
In here.
Yeah. In fact, my brother was one of the zombies, and this was around Halloween, and he asked if he could leave the makeup on. You put some makeup on him, but it was, rubber, and
he kept it on.
He kept it on, but he couldn't get it off.
Well, that's because we weren't there to take it off.
Right, and we were using nail polish remover. I couldn't
Oh,
find
my
your
God.
number. He was scraping it off
Wow.
for days. It was funny.
I remember that was a very windy day, and when all those zombies were down on top of that elevator, when it came down, a C-stand fell off the top, and somebody got clobbered.
Wow.
But he's fine. I just saw him at a convention. I remember we all went out to the hospital to visit him.
Oh, this is the... Nasty man gets his.
Just disdain on his face. Is that Tasso getting hit again?
Oh yeah, every time somebody gets hurt, it was me or Tasso, or mainly Tasso.
Bubba Reeves. Uh-oh.
Hey, buddy, why aren't you moving?
He's excited to see him at first. What a great job he did.
Yeah, he was excellent. You know, it was fun also watching the dailies in that hotel. That was a lot
right.
of fun.
That's right. We had a room in the hotel, and we were actually projecting 35. Well, that's always a good time too. I know some people don't like to watch dailies. You know, I love it. It's the first time you see the movie. I think Pat was doing some assemblies while we were still shooting. I don't quite remember.
Yeah.
You know, it all blurs. But I know, everyone says, well, you can only watch a movie big screen. You should never watch it on TV. Well, you make a movie on a small screen. And you never see it big until it's out of your hands and you're finished. So this was the effect.
Now, here's something somebody had to tell me. I didn't realize it, but when they tear his head off, he's screaming his lungs out. But as they're tearing his head off, did you do something in post to make his voice go higher?
High-pitched, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. I never noticed that.
Yeah, we did a little EQ thing to make his voice go up.
Because his vocal cords are being
stretched.
like a violin on a high note,
Oh, jeez.
But it's true. A filmmaker never sees his film except on a very small screen. The old moviolas used to be little 8-inch screens, and then finally when they went to flatbeds, and now on Avids with all these electronic editing systems, you're still watching it. You make it on a small screen television. So I never think it's invalid, to watch a film on small screen.
I think he gets his...
Same
they're
flip.
tearing his forehead off. Okay. I think they bite his fingers off, too. Yeah, there they go. Joe Ablin bites his fingers off.
Was that Jefferson Street?
Yeah.
Well, you have a great memory, Tom.
And that was Bob Martin, the editor of Fangoria magazine, for a minute there. And that's...
Gary using his football skills.
Gary was tall.
Yeah,
Huge.
big,
He
huge
was
guy. He was a huge guy.
I think he kills my brother here. That's my cop friend. There's my brother on the left.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. We invited anybody out there. Come be a zombie.
Right.
We'll kill you. We'll kill you in the most interesting way.
Didn't
Well,
you
then
get
there were people
everybody got $1 that was a zombie, right?
In a box lunch, I think.
And a little diploma, I think.
There's
Paper
Akram
jackets.
Madani.
Yeah.
Madani.
He was the
Former dean of the College of Fine Arts.
at Carnegie Mellon University.
Even he came out, right?
And his wife. Yeah.
And he was so excited.
There was a band that was a fan of the
Oh,
other
yeah.
films that came out. MSB was it? Not MSB.
G-Force. The brothers. The band was called G-Force.
G-Force, that's it.
Yeah.
They were good.
Yeah, didn't they? Did they play at the hotel?
They played at the hotel in the bar one night, I think.
But it's around the Berg. You really don't have to ask You know, people want to. When I used to have a website, there goes the clown again.
Yeah.
You know, I probably have files of hundreds of people that want to be as I mean, they all want to have a good makeup, and they all want to have something terrible happen to them. So.
They want to be juicy. You know?
Howard was tall also. Bob. He was
think
very,
he was the
he was like
tallest one
6 foot.
there,
Yeah, he was like 6 foot 3.
6'2", 6'3".
I'll teach you how to shoot. Come on, you bet.
Cleanup was always fun.
Now that was synchronized. Were they synchronized, or were you doing those manually?
One was because they were both in the same shot.
So the other one had to be manual.
Yeah, they were just isolated shots. And he had an exit squib on the back of his head, and we just pressed a button when he put it in his mouth. Explosive charge, but it's on a plate. You know, he's protected. Nice shot.
No slouch. I love that photo of you guys with your guns out. We have that on the wall.
See there, that looks...
those look terrible.
Yeah, I remember.
They look like little daisies.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm getting like kicked back. I thought this was really cool because this gun was like.
Gun was hurting you.
I felt so macho.
Tame the gun.
They were too regular, you know. They weren't splintery enough.
Well, if we would have gotten that extra couple million, we could have done it better.
That's right. That's right.
And this place was really there, right?
Well, this was at the other location. Wasn't this at the silo?
This is a silo. This is at the mine.
And this was an actual silo that housed the missile.
Come along, Johnny. Counting on you to fly us to the promised land.
That was a scary place. And here we are shooting missiles again.
Yeah, because weren't we talking like, God, we didn't even know this was here.
Yeah.
How many other secret little missile locations are there floating around that we don't know about?
Right.
If something happened, suddenly comes to life.
That's a great shot.
You always think of them out in, the desert someplace. And here's one right near the Monroeville Mall.
Exactly, yeah. Aha, protecting the
part
mall.
of the shopping center.
Here we go, Tom. Coming up to that terrible moment.
Soon we will bury Joe under a fake floor and attach a fake body to him and dress it like him.
But see how that rock, it was actually there. That rock was
That's-
there as the...
It's even inside some of the offices, too.
Right,
Like they
the
built their
rocks
offices around the rock.
The building was actually built around that.
Yeah.
Those major support.
That big column there. It's fascinating. Look, it's just...
Yeah, people would think, they built that there to make it look like the cave or something, and it was actually there. He's going down.
Takes a beating, but keeps on ticking. Takes a licking, but keeps on.
He's leaving a trail for a bub to follow.
And this is where you had to use those putrid innards.
Oh, right.
They unplugged our refrigerator.
He was getting very sick, wasn't he?
Well, if you see the take,
he had to be there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean,
He was getting
I have
nauseous.
home video of this. He's ready to heave. The zombies are blowing, or when the take was over, they're waving their hands in front of his face to keep the stench from him, because you couldn't protect him because you had to look up his nostrils. We had respirators on with English leather on our upper lips and nose plugs up on our nose.
I remember.
Oh, it smelled like an autopsy. It was horrible. There's the band. All those guys in the front are the G-Force band, and Tasso's on the left with a motorcycle helmet on. Because I wanted Tasso to tear him apart, because I could trust Tasso to
Do it right.
Yeah, to
Not
take his
hard.
time
Don't
and,
take a real part off.
Yeah, we almost put a rubber chicken inside of Joe. Somebody had a rubber chicken. That might be too recognizable, even with blood on it. So. But just about everything else is in there. Those putrid intestines. We were making intestines out of sausage casing, and filling it up with crap. I think the food on the craft service table is in there. Yeah.
Yikes.
Jeez, oh man.
In fact, that looked like a rubber chicken.
Yes, it did.
I wonder if we did use the rubber chicken. Somebody sneaked the rubber chicken in. It was Greg. Now
See,
he's saying
that's going to become legend now.
Yeah. Now everybody asks me what he says. He says, "Choke on them."
Right.
In other words, choke on those legs. You
Choke.
egg-eating zombies. You.
Yeah. Hey, that's me walking by with
You
my
can tell with the lucky scarf.
lucky scarf. Then I
George
find,
always wears a lucky scarf on his.
not anymore. I decided it was bringing the wrong kind of luck. That had bloodstains on it from over the years. That was my only little. I used to always like to show my face, but then I got tired of the way I looked. It's a mandatory banquet scene.
And that was barbecue sauce and real food. I think chipped ham, hot dogs, cooked things from craft services. I think.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were
Chicken
chewing on
wings.
rubber.
But you're
things,
not sure?
Well, when they tore Joe apart, you could tell those zombies were supposed to be eating, but they would bring it toward their face and touch it on the side of their face and make chewing motions as if they were, because.
Let's hope they filled up the gas tank.
Pittsburgh, Florida. Pittsburgh, Florida. Pittsburgh, Florida.
Come on, come on. Get it, get it.
That was another attempt at again, low budget audio effect. I always wanted that screen to go right into the seagulls, and it never, not quite there. Pretty day. Pretty island, Sanibel, actually.
Beautiful.
Well, you bought a house there for a while.
Yeah, I had a house there for 13 years.
A lot of people were not so happy with this ending, huh, George?
No, but I decided after Dawn and everyone got away, that these guys should get away too.
Otherwise, you would have slaughtered them, right?
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately what a lot of the fans wanted. I love this though, starting in a new month. So this all happened in 4 days.
It's my birthday. God, that went by fast.
Yeah.
When you're having fun.
It's fun watching it together.
Oh, it is fun.
Wow.
Yeah, we should have had bigger crowd.
It's hard to believe it was 18 years ago.
Really hard to believe. Well, ready for another one.
Dun 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 dun.
So a lot of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood people worked on these movies.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers Show, yeah. Crew. A lot of them are on this. That's why it would have been good to have Mr. Rogers.
Oh, it's amazing, man. All the names come back. It's always fascinating to me. You look at the credits and the names hit you, and people that you forgot or names that you forgot. Pat Boobin, the editor, his brother Tony lives in Pittsburgh here. He's pretty becoming quite a well-known independent filmmaker. And he did a feature with Laurie called No Pets. And John, right? Amplis.
That's right, John Amplis, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, Pat Booba, he's out there. He did Al Pacino's Looking for Richard and, God, so many other major films.
Speed. Not Speed. Yeah, was it not Speed? Oh, gosh. What was the one with De Niro and Pacino?
Heat.
Heat. Heat, Speed,
it's hard to disassociate from, like George said, when you're every time I, like on the beach, I was thinking of all the stuff that was going on, those memories. It's hard to like just isolate.
Seeing the movie, you kind of think of what's going on off camera.
Yeah.
Kind of reminiscing about how you got to where it was actually what was actually being filmed.
I think I can see why people are discovering it now again. I think it's there's a lot to it. I think George wrote a very good script.
Well, when you think of zombie movie, you think of George's zombie movies, I mean, Dawn of the Dead is the masterpiece zombie movie, and this is part of the trilogy. Everybody wants to. That's why they're all coming out together, right?
So I just want to say that I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to work with all of you. It's great.
Well, thank you, Laurie.
Good
I
memories.
feel the same about all of you guys. It was,
yeah.
And thanks for letting us celebrate Halloween for 3 months.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from you, George.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
well,
it was a whole chapter of life. Seems long ago, but watching it now, it just seems like yesterday.
Comes right back.
Yeah, sure does.